I used to raise pigeons on my balcony, not just a few, around 50 of them. Each one had a name, a personality, a sound that I could recognize even in the dark. Their soft cooing was the first thing I heard every morning, and the gentle flutter of wings was my favorite sound in the evening. It was my peaceful world. The small rooftop balcony, with its wire cages and the scent of grain and feathers, felt alive like an extension of my own heartbeat. Every morning, I would climb up there with a small bucket of grains, and as soon as the latch clicked open, dozens of wings would burst into the air. The sound was magical, like rain mixed with whispers. I'd watch them circle the sky and come back to land on the railing, their heads twitching as if talking among themselves. I loved them, every one of them. But then, something changed. It began so quietly, so harmlessly, that at first, I didn't even notice. One morning, when I went to feed them, I found one missing. I thought maybe it had flown away or gotten lost in the crowd of city birds. I didn't think much of it, but the next morning another was gone. No sign, no feathers, no blood, just gone, as if it had been erased from existence. By the end of that week, I had lost 5 pigeons. That's when I started to worry. The balcony looked the same, still, calm, ordinary, but it began to feel different. At night, I could feel something heavy in the air. It wasn't the kind of silence you get after a long day. It was a silence that watched you. Sometimes, I'd hear faint scratching from the wire cage even though all the pigeons were asleep. Other times, I'd find feathers near the corner of the balcony, torn in half, but without a drop of blood. That part scared me the most. There was never any blood. A pigeon attacked by a cat or a rat would leave blood, feathers, maybe a broken wing, but these were clean disappearances. Neat, surgical. One night, I stayed up late in my room, the balcony door half open. Around midnight, I heard something soft, like wings brushing against the bars. Not the usual pigeon flutter, but slower, deliberate, as if something was moving carefully. I got up and went close to the curtain. My heart thudded in my chest. I peered through the thin fabric, but the balcony light was flickering once, twice, and then it went completely out. The darkness that followed wasn't normal. It wasn't the kind that comes when a bulb blows out. It felt thick, alive, like the air itself had turned to tar. From that night onward, my balcony no longer felt like mine. My pigeons began to avoid the far corner near the iron grill. They would all huddle on the opposite side, trembling in silence. Whenever I opened the door, they would look at me not like they used to, but as if begging me not to go out there. Their little black eyes reflected something I couldn't see. Still, I refused to believe anything unnatural was happening. I told myself maybe it was a snake, or a big owl that came at night. Something explainable. I bought a new CCTV camera and installed it above the cages. If something comes, I'll know, I told myself. I'll catch it on video. That very night, I sat inside my room watching the live feed on my phone. The clock ticked past 12:15 a.m. The pigeons were restless, shifting, cooing low, wings brushing nervously. Suddenly, the screen glitched. Static. The image flickered for 2 seconds, and then went completely black. The timestamp kept moving. The recording was still active, but there was nothing on the screen, just an endless black void. I rushed to the balcony, heart pounding. The moment I opened the door, the light came back on. Everything looked fine. The pigeons were calm again. Nothing had moved. Nothing was broken. But when I counted them, one was missing. Again. No blood, no feather, no trace. It was that night I first felt something standing behind me. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it. But every hair on my neck rose as if someone was leaning close enough that I could almost feel its breath brush the back of my ear. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I went inside and locked the door. That was the last night I ever slept peacefully. After that night, everything changed. The balcony, my little paradise, no longer felt like a place of life. It had become something else, something watching me. During the day, the air there still shimmered with sunlight and dust motes. The pigeons fluttered around, eating grains as if nothing had happened. But when dusk arrived, the shadows seemed to stretch faster than usual, creeping across the walls like living things. Every evening, tell myself not to think about it. I'd feed them, locked the cage, and stepped back into my room before the light completely faded. Yet even when I was inside, I could still hear the balcony's soft wings brushing against metal, a low, trembling coo, the sound of claws dragging lightly over the concrete rail. Sometimes I'd even hear a faint tap 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 like someone's fingernail scratching the cage door. And then came the smell. It started faint, like burnt feathers, but it wasn't exactly smoke. It was heavier, sweet, rotten, and metallic, like something that had died long ago but was still breathing somewhere close. I cleaned the cages again and again, washed the floor with disinfectant, even sprinkled salt around the corners. But every night after midnight, the smell returned. That's when I knew something was coming back. I watched the CCTV recordings from the previous night, and it was the same every time. The moment the clock reached 12:17 a.m., the footage glitched and turned completely black. The system didn't crash, the camera didn't disconnect, it was recording, but it saw nothing, just endless, motionless black, a void that swallowed everything. One morning, I went out to check the balcony right after one of those blackouts. The air was freezing cold. My breath fogged up like it was winter, though it was still warm outside. There was no bird missing that night. I sighed in relief, but then noticed something strange. One of the cage doors was bent inward. The metal twisted as if someone or something had pulled it from the outside with enormous force. I stared at it for a long time, trying to find an explanation. It wasn't human strength. It wasn't an animal. It was something else. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the clock, watching it crawl closer to midnight. Every tick of the second hand felt like a pulse inside my skull. My phone lay beside me, showing the CCTV feed again. At exactly 12:15 a.m., saw the pigeons start to move. They fluttered violently, their wings slapping the sides of the cage, eyes wide and frantic. Then just like before, the feed began to distort. Static, flickered, and then, black. Only this time, I'd hear something through the speakers. A faint fluttering sound, then, whispering, soft, broken whispers. It didn't sound like any language I knew. It wasn't human, not exactly. It was breathy, cold, layered as if several voices were speaking at once, overlapping, saying things I wasn't meant to understand. I turned up the volume, my hands trembling. The whisper grew louder for a second, and then suddenly stopped. A loud thump came from the balcony door. I froze. My skin crawled with goosebumps. For a moment, everything went completely silent. No sound from the pigeons. No sound from outside. Even the street dogs stopped barking. Then something scratched the metal of the door. Long, slow, dragging scratches from the top to the bottom. The sound was unbearable, like nails digging into my bones. I couldn't breathe. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I stood up slowly and turned toward the balcony. The curtain moved slightly, though there was no wind. It swayed once, twice, then stopped. The light from outside had gone dim, not completely dark, but a sickly gray, as if the moonlight had been swallowed. I could see the faint outline of something standing just beyond the curtain, small, hunched, trembling. It wasn't moving like a person or an animal. It was shifting, rippling, its shape changing every second. One moment, it looked like a bird, the next like a shadow wearing feathers. My chest tightened, the curtain swayed again. Something thin and sharp pressed against the fabric from the other side like a claw. Then another. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. And then, it stopped. The air grew colder, and the smell of burnt feathers filled the room again. When I finally found the courage to step forward and pull the curtain aside, there was nothing. Just the cages, still and silent. The pigeons stared at me, wide-eyed, their heads twitching rapidly as if following something invisible moving around them. One of them, a white pigeon named Raffi that had been with me since the beginning, was trembling so hard that its feathers puffed up like a snowball. I tried to calm it down, whispering softly, "It's okay, I'm here." That's when I noticed it. A small feather black as ash was stuck to the edge of my curtain. Not gray, not brown, pure black, oily, like it belonged to something that had never seen sunlight. And it was warm. I dropped it instantly. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. I shut the balcony door, locked it, and sat on the floor for almost an hour, too scared to move. That was the night I realized it wasn't an animal. It wasn't random. Something was coming every night exactly at the same time. And every time it came, the darkness itself abated. The next morning, I found another pigeon missing. No blood, no feathers. Just a single black feather on the balcony floor, still warm to the touch. That night, I made a decision that still haunts me when I think about it. I was done being afraid. Something was coming to my balcony every night, something that could make the camera go blind. Something that could take life without spilling a drop of blood. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I told myself that fear grows only in the dark. If I faced it, maybe it would disappear. I was wrong. So, I prepared. That evening, I cleaned the balcony again, fixed the broken cage, door, and scattered grains as usual. But this time, I set everything up carefully: the camera, my phone, the lights. I kept a small flashlight hidden under my blanket. I even spread a thin sheet over my head so I could sit there unnoticed. My plan was simple: stay awake, silent, and watch. The hours passed slowly. 10 o'clock p.m. The pigeons were calm. 11 o'clock p.m. The street outside was quiet, the occasional dog barking in the distance. 11:45 p.m. I'd feel my heartbeat sinking with the ticking clock. By 12:10 a.m., the air started to change. It's strange how you can feel when something is about to happen. The warmth left the air first. The crickets outside went silent. The faint hum of the city seemed to die, leaving behind a soundless void that pressed against my ears. My breath came out in tiny clouds, and the skin of my arms prickled with cold. Inside the sheet, I watched through a small fold, my eyes fixed on the cage. The pigeons were restless. They shifted, wings rustling in nervous bursts, eyes darting toward the corner near the iron grill, the same corner they had avoided for nights. Their movements were frantic, desperate. Then, at 12:17 a.m., the balcony light flickered once, twice, and died. Everything went dark. Only the faint orange glow from the distant street lamp fell through the window grill, painting thin bars of light across the floor. I turned on the flashlight, but it refused to work. I tapped it again and again. Nothing. Even my phone screen wouldn't light up. It was as if electricity itself had abandoned this place. And then, I heard it. A sound so small it could have been mistaken for a whisper of air. But it was wings. Flap, flap, flap. Soft, deliberate. Something small had landed on the balcony railing. I could hear the faint scrape of tiny claws against the iron bar. The pigeons went silent, utterly still, their fear palpable in the air. I held my breath. Through the tiny slit in the sheet, I saw a shadow move, something no larger than a sparrow perched at the corner of the balcony grill. Its outline was sharp and trembling. For a moment, it just sat there, tilting its head left and right like it was searching for something. Then, it began to change. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The little shadow started to stretch. Slowly, painfully, the neck elongated, the wings spread wider, bones cracking faintly like twigs under pressure. The small body swelled, feathers rippling as if they were alive, writhing. Within seconds, it was no longer small. It had grown twice, thrice its size. The faint orange light from the street revealed more of it now. It wasn't a bird anymore. Its wings were too long, too thin, almost translucent at the edges. Its feathers weren't feathers, they were like torn strips of ash, smoking faintly at the tips. And its eyes, God, its eyes, two dim orange orbs glowing faintly in the dark. Not bright like fire, but dull, dead, hollow. I felt my entire body stiffen. My heart thudded painfully, and my throat dried up so much I couldn't even swallow. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. The creature tilted its head again, slowly, unnaturally far to one side, as if its neck had no bones. It made a sound, then half hiss, half whisper, something like a sigh that echoed inside my chest. The pigeon started to flap violently in panic, banging against the cages. Then it moved. In one smooth, silent motion, it jumped down from the railing. Its wings didn't flap, they slid through the air like smoke. I watched as it landed near the cages, its head twitching toward the nearest pigeon. The creature's movements were jerky, like a puppet on invisible strings. It crouched low, its long, black wings wrapped around the cage. and then the light returned for just one split second. I saw it clearly. Then, its face wasn't that of a bird. It was smooth, gray, almost human, but without a mouth. Just two hollow eye sockets glowing dimly, and a line down the middle of where its lips should have been sealed shut, as though it had been sewn closed. Its fingers were long, blackened, ending in hooked nails. It reached through the metal bars, not breaking them, but melting through them like smoke passing through air. A pigeon let out a weak, choking sound, and then silence. No blood, no struggle, only a soft flutter of wings, and the cage door swayed open on its own. The creature pulled back slowly, holding nothing. Its hands were empty, yet when it turned, I saw something inside it, something faintly glowing, like a small white flicker moving inside its chest, fading slowly. The pigeons didn't make another sound. It stood there for a moment, its head turning toward me. I swear it looked right at me through the sheet. My lungs froze. I could feel its gaze heavy, cold, ancient. It tilted its head once more, then straightened up. The glow in its eyes dimmed. Then, as if someone had pressed rewind, its body began to shrink again. Bones creaked, feathers curled inward. The tall shadow folded into itself, until it was small once more, just a little black bird. It hopped once toward the grill, looked back, and flew out through the narrow gap into the night. For a long time, I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen under the sheet, gasping quietly, listening to the echo of my own heartbeat. When I finally stood up, my knees were shaking so badly I almost fell. I turned on the light, it worked this time, and looked around. Everything seemed normal, except one cage door was open. Inside, only empty space. And on the floor, near my foot, lay a single feather. It wasn't black this time. It was half white, and half burnt, curling at the edges, still smoking faintly. That was the night I knew for certain. This was no ordinary creature. This was something that fed not on flesh, but on life itself. After that night, nothing was the same. I stopped leaving the balcony door unlocked. I stopped sleeping more than an hour at a time. The pigeons clustered together like a single living thing, and every time I reached toward them, my hand trembled as if the dark itself might snatch my fingers away. Fear had turned into a slow, hot hunger, not for violence at first, but for an answer. I wanted the thing that came at midnight to show its face and tell me why it hated us. I wanted an end. When I admit it now, the truth is ugly. Grief gave way to rage. For weeks I had watched life leave those birds like water through a broken cup, and grief is a poor tutor for patience. Love curdled into a need for justice. The loss of each pigeon pushed me closer to something I did not recognize in myself. It felt like the only honest thing left to do was to make the darkness pay. So I made a plan, not a clever one, just a human plan, clumsy with grief and desperation. I would make a night that could not be ignored. I would make the balcony unbearable to whatever came there, force it into the open and into my sight, and refuse to let it vanish again. Preparation took days. I rearranged the cages, moving the oldest and timidest birds to the center where I could see them easily. I padded my chair with blankets and sat through countless hours, watching, listening. I cleaned until the scent of grain became a memory. I set small offerings out, seeds, pieces of bread, the little things the birds liked to make the place look normal, to make the thing that came think nothing had changed. If it was cunning, perhaps it would be careless. At night, while the city slept, I collected objects that felt as though they belonged to nightmares, rags that smelled faintly of kerosene, old glass jars with darkened mouths, strips of cloth I had once used to bind a sprained finger. I placed salt at the four corners of the balcony, not because I believed in salt's magic, but because salt felt like a border, a line between my world and whatever slid through cracks. I drew a rough circle on the concrete with white chalk and sat the cages inside it, as if the chalk might keep something at bay, or at least mark the place where I had chosen to fight. More than anything, I wanted witness. I set the camera where it could see the whole balcony, and hid another small mirror to catch the creature's flank if it tried to creep by. Then I sat, watched, and waited, day after day, until waiting felt like a job I had been promoted to against my will. The night I chose was moonless. The city sounds thinned to a single, distant hum. I ate nothing, Hunger would make me lightheaded and clumsy, and clumsiness is a bad companion for a plan that required patience. My hand kept finding the small, worn prayer beads my grandmother had given me, an old habit, something to roll between my fingers when the world became too loud. I muttered names under my breath, the 50 names I had given the birds, each syllable a promise I could not keep. Saying those names made me braver, if braver is the right word for someone who has nothing left to lose. Time folded. The hour came like an animal creeping up a lane. At 12:17, the lamp over the balcony gutter flickered and died, and the same thick dark rolled in like oil. The CCTV feed stuttered to blank. I could see the time stop moving, but the screen showed nothing. My throat tightened. I stayed where I was, barely breathing. The sound arrived not loud, but precise. The soft, rasping whisper of wings. Closer than it had ever been. I peered through the slit in the curtain and saw first a small black shape land on the railing, then stretch, then change. The thing unfolded like a nightmare made of paper. It paused, as if tasting the air, then moved toward the cages. I remember a detail later people would call meaningless. The smell. Not smoke yet, but a sweetness like caramel gone wrong. Like something burning on the inside rather than the outside. It made my eyes water and my hands clench. For an instant, I thought I would step out and throw myself between the creature and my birds. Then the fury rose in me, a cold, absolute decision. I had been given monsters enough nights. Tonight I would decide the ending. I will not tell you technical steps. The sins of practical instruction feel different from the sins of the heart. What matters is the shape of the act. I set things so that light would burst suddenly, a ring of flame that would not spread beyond what I intended, a signal and a trap. I made it a ritual, arranging the objects, not with the mind of a saboteur, but with the trembling hands of someone making a funeral pyre. Each motion felt like drawing a line through grief. When I struck the match, or when the light found its source. Details smear now like grease on glass. The world lit up in a way that made the dark scream. The balcony filled with a thin, flickering halo. The creature halted as if surprised by brightness, then its shape convulsed and, for a beat, it looked grotesquely vulnerable. It had never been shown fire so directly. If it fed on the quiet between heartbeats, light was a blade. The pigeons screamed a single sound that was not clean feathers, but 1,000 small breaking things. I remember how one white pigeon curved toward me as if in accusation, and then, in the next breath, collapsed. The circle of light licked at the edges of the creature, and for a moment, the smoke took on the silhouette of something ancient and contorted. The sound it made then was wrong. Not a bird's cry, but a rending of cloth, like a robe being torn. I watched, and as I watched, the creature burned. Not the flamboyant blaze you see in a movie, but a hush of heat, a collapsing in on itself, like a candle that's been snuffed, but still smolders. It shrank, convulsed, made a last sound that tasted like the inside of a bell, and then it was gone, sucked inwards as if the night itself had gulped it. For a second, triumph roared through me, a bright, awful joy. I had taken something fearsome and made it small. I had, in my mind, avenged 50 small lives. Then the consequences came, immediate and terrible. The victory tasted of ash. The balcony was full of smoke that clung to my throat and to the pigeons' feathers. Some birds flapped in confusion and crashed into the rail. Others lay motionless with a quiet I had never heard before. The scent that had first warned me now filled my mouth, and the air felt thick with answers that were not comfort. The small white feather I had found after the first encounter now lay like a verdict beside the cage, charred at the tips, oddly warm. And worse than the smoke, worse than the sound of wings that would not rise again, was the cold that wrapped my spine. It was as if something else, unseen and patient, had witnessed what I had done, and had taken my name down. My body betrayed me. Fever came 2 days later, a burning that left me trembling and hungry for sleep. I could not trust. The dreams began to break into me, violent and precise. Faces without mouths, corridors that led nowhere, a small bird pecking at the inside of my skull. I sat there on the balcony long after the flames had guttered out, wrapped in blankets and clutching the beads until the skin beneath my fingers went numb. I thought I had ended it. I thought, foolishly, that fire could finish a thing that had been feeding on silence. But the night is patient, and so are other things that live between the cracks. When dawn came, there were fewer pigeons. Not all had died, but enough had gone that a hollow settled around my ribs. I looked at the charred circle on the floor and felt, with a cold certainty, that I had traded something for something else. I had paid with heat, but I had received a debt I could not yet read. The trap had worked in a way, and failed in another. I had forced the visitor to answer, yes. But answers are heavy, and some never leave you. I felt something taking root behind my ribs. A dread that was no longer about the pigeons, only, but about me. I had touched the dark, and it had, in turn, touched me. That night, sleep carried no relief. The fever turned my dreams into judgments. In the black corners of those dreams the thing returned, and when it did, it no longer came alone. The night after the Huger's visit was the first time I had slept peacefully in weeks. But peace has a strange way of tricking you, making you believe it's real, only to pull you into something darker. For 2 nights, nothing happened. The air on the balcony felt lighter. My pigeons, what remained of them, finally ate without trembling. I thought maybe, just maybe, it was over. But on the 3rd night, I heard it again. A flutter, soft at first, like the wind brushing against the grills. Then louder, then closer. I froze. The clock read 12:17 a.m. That cursed time. I didn't move at first. I just sat on my bed, eyes locked on the balcony door. The curtain was still. The light from the street lamp outside flickered, dying slowly. Then, I heard it a knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the glass. Tock, tock, tock. I couldn't breathe. Every hair on my body stood on end. I wanted to believe it was the wind, or maybe a bird that had flown too close. But something inside me knew the truth. It had come back. I reached for the matchbox I'd kept on the table beside me. My hand was shaking so badly that the sticks clattered to the floor. I picked one up, lit it, and walked slowly toward the balcony. The moment I touched the curtain, a gust of freezing wind hit me so cold it burned my skin. The match went out instantly. I whispered under my breath, "You won't take them again." Then I pulled the curtain aside. What I saw on the other side wasn't of this world. A dark, twisted figure was crouched near the cages. It had wings, but not like a bird's. They were shredded, black, and slick, as if they were made of smoke and burnt flesh. Its head was small and bird-like, but its body looked human. Thin, almost skeletal, with trembling, long fingers clutching the cage bars. Its face turned toward me, eyes glowing a faint, sickly yellow. And when it smiled, I saw teeth. Rows of them, sharp, uneven, stained. A sound came from its throat, a mix of a hiss and a growl, followed by a voice that didn't sound like one voice at all. It was many, layered, whispering over each other. "You burned me." I stumbled backward. My knees almost gave out. It stood slowly, the sound of cracking bones echoing through the air. The room grew darker with every step it took toward me, as if it carried night inside its skin. The pigeons behind it had gone silent, frozen with fear. I knew it wasn't a normal creature. It was that bird, the one that had eaten my pigeons night after night. And the Huger was right, it wasn't an animal at all. It was a jinn. Something old, something angry, something that wanted revenge. I grabbed the bottle of petrol I had kept hidden behind the balcony wall. My plan was mad, but it was the only thing left. I splashed it around the floor, the walls, the cages, everything. The creature watched, unmoving, its head tilted slightly to one side, as if curious. Then I struck the match. For a single second, everything froze. The jinn's face twisted not in fear, but in rage. It let out a scream so high, so shrill, it didn't sound like sound at all. It felt like pressure inside my skull. My ears bled, my vision blurred. Then I threw the match. The fire erupted instantly. The balcony exploded in a storm of orange and red. The creature screeched, its voice echoing through the building like thunder. Its wings caught fire, twisting and flapping wildly, spraying embers everywhere. It slammed against the walls, the ceiling, even the glass door, each time leaving black, claw-shaped burns behind. I fell to the floor, covering my face as heat tore through the air. The pigeons' cages melted. The smell of burning feathers filled the room. I could hear the creature thrashing, shrieking, and then suddenly silence. When I opened my eyes, the balcony was a burning ruin. The creature was gone. Only smoke and ashes remained. I thought it was over. I truly did. I stood up, shaking, coughing, and crying all at once. I had killed it. I had destroyed the thing that haunted me. But then I noticed something in the corner of the balcony amidst the fire and smoke. A black feather, still intact, still warm, and as I stared at it, I heard it again, that voice, faint, echoing inside my head. You burned me, now I burn you. My head spun. The flame seemed to grow higher, brighter. My throat tightened, my chest heavy. The heat didn't just stay outside, it was inside me. I fell to the ground, clutching my chest as my vision went dark. When I woke up hours later, I was in my bed. My head throbbed. My whole body burned with fever. My mother said she found me unconscious near the balcony, the place covered in soot, but no longer burning. And from that day on, my body never felt the same. Fever, nightmares, whispers. Every night, I would dream of that same burning figure standing in my balcony, staring through the window with glowing eyes. Then, one night, I saw not the jinn, but a family of shadows behind it, watching me. That was when the Huger told me the truth. The creature I burned wasn't alone. It had a family, and they wanted revenge. The fever never left me. It clung to me like a curse that refused to fade. My body burned, but the nights were always cold, unnaturally cold. I would wake up drenched in sweat, my skin pale as bone, and yet when I touched the air, it felt like ice. For days, I tried to convince myself that the burning creature had been destroyed, that the fire had ended it all. But deep inside, I knew it wasn't over. The Huger's words kept echoing in my mind. You killed one, but not all. The others will come, not for your pigeons, but for your soul. At first, I thought it was just fear playing tricks on me. But then, the dream started. The first dream was vivid to be called just a dream. I was standing on my balcony again, except it wasn't the same. The cages were still there, but they were empty, burnt, blackened, twisted. The sky was pitch black. Not a star, not a moon, only darkness. I could hear wings flapping somewhere above me. Slow, heavy, not one pair, many. When I looked up, I saw dozens of dark shapes circling overhead. Birds, but not quite. Their bodies were smoke, their eyes red pinpricks glowing against the void. They moved without sound, except for the faint rustling that seemed to come from inside my own head. Then I heard a voice. It wasn't loud, it was inside me. You burned our blood. You stole our night. Now we take yours. The sky split open like torn fabric, and something fell. A single, black, burning feather dropped onto my chest. It sank into my skin like hot metal. I woke up screaming. After that night, strange things began to happen inside the house. The mirrors fogged up, even when it wasn't cold. When I wiped them, words appeared in the steam. You can't kill what doesn't die. At first, my mother thought I was losing my mind. She brought more Hugers, more holy water, more verses. They recited, prayed, burned incense. For a while, the air felt lighter again, but the shadows didn't leave. They waited. Every night, around 12:17 a.m., I would hear something scratching, first on the walls, then on the door, then closer. I once caught a glimpse of it in the reflection of my mirror. Something was standing behind me, small, winged, but human-like. Its face was wrong, its mouth stretched too wide, its eyes hollow, but burning faintly red. It was smiling, and when I turned around, there was nothing there. The worst night came 2 weeks later. The fever had returned, fiercer than ever. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think. The air in my room was thick, heavy, suffocating. I felt something pressing down on my chest, as if someone was sitting on me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. That's when I saw them. 3 shadows standing near the foot of my bed. They didn't move. They just stood there watching. Their shapes flickered, fading in and out like smoke. And then, slowly, they began to whisper, the same voice I had heard before. But now, it was clearer, human, and yet not human at all. Why did you burn her? She was only feeding. Now we feed on you. The walls began to vibrate. My bed shook. The bulb flickered violently, flashing between light and total darkness. In the brief moments when the light returned, I could see them moving closer inch by inch. Their hands thin, black, clawed reached toward me. I couldn't move. My limbs were paralyzed. My vision blurred. I could hear a deep humming sound filling my ears, like thousands of insects buzzing. My mind screamed, but my mouth couldn't. Then something hot dripped onto my face. I opened my eyes slightly and saw blood falling from the ceiling. Thick, slow drops. The bulb exploded. Total darkness. And then breathing, right beside my ear. Not mine. Something else. It whispered again softly this time. You killed her, and we will kill you. One breath at a time. Something cold touched my throat sharp, like a claw. I gasped, forcing my hand to move, and reached for the small bottle of holy water beside my bed. I threw it blindly into the dark. A piercing scream filled the room, so loud it rattled the windows. The air cracked open with light blue flames flashed across the floor, outlining 3 dark forms writhing, twisting, burning. For a moment, I saw them clearly, faces half human, half bird, wings of smoke, mouths open in silent rage. Then everything went black. When I woke up, the room was filled with the smell of smoke and iron. My pillow was soaked with sweat and blood. The walls had deep, black marks, as if something had clawed them. My body was covered in thin scratches, and one single black feather lay on my chest. That morning, I called the Huger again this time. He didn't come alone. He brought 3 men with him, carrying books, incense, and iron rings. They sealed every door and window, placed salt around my bed, and began the ritual. The air turned heavy again. The moment they started reciting, the shadows began to move fast, violent. Objects fell off shelves. The fan spun wildly. The bulb flickered. A deafening shriek echoed through the house. The Huger shouted, "Don't open your eyes. Don't look at them." But I couldn't help it. I opened my eyes, and I saw her. The same creature I had burned, now half burnt, half alive. Her wings were torn, her face melted, but her eyes still glowed, burning with hatred. She was right beside me, inches from my face. Her skin cracked and hissed like coal. "You burned me alive," she whispered, her voice shaking the air. "Now, your soul will never find peace." The Huger threw holy water at her. She screamed a sound that wasn't sound at all, more like a storm tearing through the world. Her body erupted into flames, dissolving into ash and smoke. The wind howled, then stopped. Silence. For the first time in months, silence. After that night, everything changed. The fever left. The scratches faded. The balcony remained empty, silent. But sometimes, when the night is too still, and the clock ticks toward 12:17 a.m., I still hear wings. Just one flutter, then another, and if I look out at the balcony glass, sometimes, very faintly, I can see 3 shadows standing there, watching, waiting. It's been 5 years since the fire. 5 years since that night when the Huger and his men sealed the house, when the screams faded into silence, and the air finally felt alive again. I moved away soon after, sold the old apartment, left the city behind, and promised myself I'd never keep another bird. I told everyone I was just tired of the noise, the mess, but the truth was, I couldn't bear to hear the sound of wings anymore. Even now, if a bird flies too close to my window, I flinch. Every flutter feels like a whisper from something I buried, but never truly escaped. Life went back to normal, or at least, something that looked like normal. I worked, slept, smiled when people spoke to me, but at night, when everything grew still and quiet, I would feel it again, that faint vibration in the air, the one that used to come right before the blackouts on my old CCTV footage. At first, I told myself it was paranoia, trauma, but deep down, I knew better. Last month, out of nowhere, I got a call from the caretaker of my old building. He said, "Bye, you lived in flat 3B before, right?" I hesitated. "Yes." He sighed. "Strange things happening again. Birds dying on the balcony. No blood. Just gone. People are saying the flat is cursed." My heart stopped. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said quietly, "Seal the balcony. Don't let anyone go there at night." He laughed nervously. "Bye. I don't believe in these things." But I could hear the fear in his voice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the old balcony, the smell of iron and smoke, the black feathers, the clock striking 12:17 a.m. The time burned in my mind like an open well. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. So after days of restlessness, I decided to return, just once, to see it for myself. When I arrived, the building looked older than I remembered. The paint was peeling, the stairwell smelled of dust and damp concrete. As I climbed toward the third floor, I felt something shift in the air, a strange heaviness pressing down on my chest. The same feeling I thought I'd left behind years ago. The caretaker met me at the door. He looked pale. "You shouldn't be here at night," he whispered. "What happened?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "The tenants moved out 2 weeks ago. They said they saw someone standing on the balcony, a burnt woman, with wings." My heart went cold. I pushed past him and stepped inside. The apartment was empty, bare walls, dust everywhere, silence so deep it hurt. The balcony door stood half open, its glass cracked and stained with soot that no one had ever been able to clean. The air inside smelled faintly of ashes. I stood there for a long time, staring at the balcony where it had all begun. The city outside looked peaceful, but the night sky above it was unnaturally still. No wind, no stars, no sound, just that suffocating stillness. Something drew me closer to the old spot where the cages used to be. And there, half buried in dust, I saw something glinting faintly under the moonlight. It was a small metal tag, one of the old ID rings I put on my pigeons. I bent down, picked it up, and turned it over. The number engraved on it was 17. My breath caught in my throat. Suddenly, I felt it again. The air changed colder, heavier, and behind me, a faint rustling sound. Flutter. I turned. The curtain moved, though the window was closed. The light flickered once, twice, then the bulb went out completely. Darkness. The sound came again. Flutter. Then, footsteps. Slow, bare, wet. Something was walking toward me. I backed away, my eyes struggling to adjust. The faint glow of the streetlights outside cast long, broken shadows across the walls. And then, I saw her. She was standing in the corner of the room, half burned, half formed. Her body shimmered like smoke caught between two worlds. Her wings, black and torn, hung from her back like dead fabric. But her eyes were alive. Yellow, burning, endless. "You came back," she whispered. Her voice wasn't just one voice anymore, it was many. All the ones I'd heard before. "All these years, you thought it was over. But fire doesn't destroy us. It feeds us." I stumbled back toward the door, but it slammed shut behind me with a deafening crack. The air pressure in the room dropped. My ears popped. She stepped forward. With every step, the floor darkened, burn marks spreading beneath her feet. "You burned her," she hissed, her face twitching, melting into different shapes, sometimes a bird, sometimes a woman, sometimes something in between. "And now, we burn you." Her hand reached out, long, black fingers stretching like smoke. I felt them brush against my chest, freezing cold and burning hot at the same time. Suddenly, the room filled with feathers, thousands of them, black, burning. They spun around me like a tornado, slicing through the air, whispering as they passed my ears. Each whisper was a voice, hundreds of them, all chanting one thing: 1217, 1217, 1217. I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the noise. The air turned to fire. I could see their faces now, 3, 5, 10 of them, shadows forming from the smoke, each with the same glowing eyes, circling me, reaching. I dropped to my knees, covering my ears, shouting verses I remembered from the Hugers' prayers. My voice shook, breaking under the weight of their laughter, and then suddenly, all stopped. The fire vanished. The feathers fell, turning to ash before they hit the ground. The air cleared, and when I looked up, the balcony was empty. No smoke, no sound, no jinn, only silence. I stood there trembling, gasping for air. My hands were bleeding, thin cuts all over them, like I'd been clawing at something invisible. When I turned to leave, I noticed something new on the wall near the door. A black mark, freshly burned into the plaster. It was the shape of a hand, long fingers, sharp claws, and beneath it, written in ashes, a single word: return. That was the last time I ever went back. I left the city again, moved to somewhere far away, new life, new job, new home. But even now, when the clock reaches 12:17 a.m., I still wake up without knowing why. Sometimes, when I look out my window, I see a single black feather resting on the sill. And once, when I touched it, it was warm. The end. Did you enjoy the story? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Horror Dream. Want more stories like this? Subscribe to The Horror Dream, and we'll bring you more darkness, just for you. If you enjoy a little chill down your spine, stick around, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, right here on The Horror Dream. Your support keeps us going, so stay with us. Subscribe to The Horror Dream for more spine-tingling tales.